Hello everyone, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. We're back on the scroll saw today. We are looking at a little kind of 3D Christmas tree project or decoration. If you've seen the candle one, it's very similar to that. And actually it comes off the same sheet and the same book. But this one, I really like the shape of this little decoration. And Christmas is coming, you may have heard. So we're gonna do a little tree decoration. Plenty of time for you guys to start knocking them out and flog them or put them on the tree, give them as gifts. So they're really nice little thing. I've got one here, which we did earlier on in the week. When we go down onto the bench in a minute, I'll give you a closer look at this, but they're really nice little things. Okay. I think we'll get straight into it. Really, there's no point hanging around. We've got some stuff laid out on the bench here. I just wanted to show you. So if we can come across onto the bench, okay. So we've got our template. Okay, if you watched them before, if you're one of our regulars, you would have seen this one. This is the candle which we did before. And these are really nice little projects, really kind of delicate little things. And that's why I think they look so nice. This is the one we're going for today. It's got a couple of ones of that. It's a little gingerbread man, really nice kind of Christmassy shape. And all I've got here is a piece of pine. This is really kind of soft pine. You can see what I've taken out of here, a big old rough bit of kind of 2x4, if you will. And just things to look out for if you're cutting these down. I cut that one on the bandsaw, but things to look out for are nail holes, knots, anything like that. So that was on there, and I've just cut that off to get to this kind of clean material. And that's what you want, because these things are pretty fragile. And if you've got a knot running through, you can see kind of the open grain and splits you get around these knots. So that's going to give you a kind of a weak spot on your project. But we're going to cut this one out. And these are cut on two planes. So we cut them on one face first, and then we'll cut them through on the other plane. So just going to cut this out. We've got Colin on the cameras and questions today. So any questions, just fire them into the chat. And as always, we'll do our best to answer. And this has come from a book called Compound Christmas Ornaments for the Scroll Saw, a book by Diana Thompson. And there's loads of really nice little shapes in there. I think this one's probably my favorite. And that's why I wanted to share it with you today. So I'm just going to fold along that dotted line there. That's the one that's going to sit on the corner. And again, I'm just looking at my piece of timber. And we want to get it on one of these square edges. So just kind of eyeball it at first. I think this is slightly thicker that way around. So we'll go there. Good. Bit of the old Copydex glue. And I'm just going to apply that to the back of the piece of paper rather than on the timber. Just going to spread that on. A nice kind of even coating. Good. I'll try and get it all over. You don't want it kind of lifting as you're cutting these on the scroll saw. So that where I've already folded it should seat just on that corner there. And I've cut this block just slightly oversized. Good. So that's our blank ready to go. And you can see it's got two different faces. All we got to do now is cut a few drill holes, because you can see these are hollow right the way through. We need to make some cuts through there. Now it's quite important that we keep this drill bit up nice and straight as we go through. and just make sure that you've come right the way through. Like I say, it's quite important to keep the drill nice and straight. You could always do this on the pillar drill. That's no problem. Be a little bit more accurate. Just going to do that a little bit there. And then, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and we've got 2 on this side as well. Good. And just have a quick peek at the bottom, make sure you've gone right the way through, because we need to thread our blade through that in a bit. It's just picked up on the pattern there. I'm just going to kind of push that back in. That's where the jaws of the drills just kind of picked up on the paper, but that's no problem. Cool. So we're ready and prepped. We can go across to the scroll saw. I'm going to pop that on the bench. One thing worth, sometimes you get these little gnarly bits where the drill has kind of pushed its way through. Just want to trim them off because you don't want them sort of sitting and rocking on the table. So just a quick little whiz round, get rid of any of that breakout. You could do that with a bit of abrasive or whatever you've got to hand. Okay, so to the scroll saw. I'll put my goggles on as a kind of minimum of our PPE, and I'm going to start on this face. I'm going to bring my cut down around here, just check my tension, and away we go. I'm going to start at the top here and work my way around the outside of this project. And we want to keep that feed rate fairly slow. Don't put too much stress on the blade by putting too much pressure. We need to give it a bit of time for all those little teeth to do their thing and cut the project, or cut that kind of, when you start getting up to this sort of size of about 40 mil, you just want to slow that feed rate down a touch. But nice simple shape to cut. We'll come right around this as in one cut, rather than do a little relief cut coming out the bottom here. We'll come right away around this shape. Holding it down as I switch positions with my grip. Again, pressure on top, switching my grip, and then away we go. Colin just did the little roll call of who's here and where you guys are from. It's lovely to see so many of you international viewers having a look, see what's going on. There we go. Slowing down at the end of the cut, allow the blade to cut its way out. Good. So happy with that so far. I'm just going to release the blade there, bring that arm up, and thread it through our drill hole. Okay, so we got our first question.
Yeah, hi everybody. So we got Cliff just asking, can you repeat the name of that book? So he says there's quite a few on Amazon. So what was the name of the book?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just grab it. It's called Compound Christmas Ornaments for the Scroll Saw. A really good book. And the author, Diana Thompson, with TH. Okay, so another question. No, we're good. Yeah, sorry, that was the thumbs up from Colin. I'm just going to put a little bit of masking tape. Stop this rattling around. I'm just going to pop it along the body there. And you can add these as you like. You know, if you feel it's starting to come loose, there's bits coming off. And what I'm going to do now is kind of come around and try and pick up on that, that curve of that oval that's inside. So I'm going to start my kind of curve coming around, pick up on that line, and just cut this around. We want to stick fairly close to our line if we can, or on the line. Because like I say, this can be quite fragile, and if the blade wanders too much, you may find that you know, you kind of get a bit too thin in a certain area. And really important also, I've made sure that the blade is at 90 degrees to the table. That's really important. We can't have the blade kind of cutting through on a diagonal. Good. That's that little bit. I'm just going to poke a hole through my masking tape. And then again, thread that from the bottom into our clamp. Let's do that up nice and tight. Pop that tension back on. And just going to tweak that at the back. So I held the blade in a very slightly different place, which means it was just fouling on top of the hold down clamp, creating a little rattle. So let's try that again. That's better. Bring my blower back out the way. Which way are we going this time? Let's come just straight up and pick up on this line here. Get that blower working for me. A nice quick change in direction. Want to keep those kind of top corners, you know, a little bit square. It gives it a really nice definition on the finished piece. And just slowly coming around this shape. Fingers getting a bit close there, so I'm going to switch my grip. We're going to keep feeding onto that cut. And again, nice and kind of slow or kind of medium feed rate. Again, I'm coming up to the cut I've already made. So what I'm going to do is just slow down as we approach it. Again, we want the blade to cut its way out rather than kind of ping out and leave that little nib on the inside. Good. So that's everything cut on that face. What I'm going to do is put a bit of masking tape, keep everything nicely held together before we turn this over through 90 degrees and cut that other face. Okay. I'll put one that side, and I'm going to flip it over and do the back side as well. I can see I'm just checking, doing a little visual check, make sure we've come right the way around that pattern. And it looks good. Okay, so let's cut that top one first. This little kind of eyelet where you're going to thread your ribbon to hang on the tree. Nice and quick with the clamping of the blade on this machine. So I'm going to come down into this little corner here, and rather than try and kind of turn that corner, I'm just going to back up into my drill hole and come back from the other way again. That gives a really nice little definition down in that bottom bit. Good. Now resting on the back of the blade, just trying to get back down into there, reverse. It's not letting me, that little bit in there is just stopping me from getting where I want to be. So just maneuver the project, then get back on my line. And cut that shape. I'm just going to turn the scroll saw off a minute. My little flap of paper's just come up. It's obscuring where I need to cut. That's it. Good. And then we're going back through the head. So we've got another question. I'll just wait for that extractor to turn itself off while I put that through. I'll get this blade back in and then we'll answer your question there.
Okay, so yeah, Frederick was asking, he said, wouldn't the pine that you're using be a little loose?
They do end up very fragile. This one I did in sycamore, but it's quite a deep cut. And I didn't struggle, but it takes a lot longer. So if you're doing these, if you wanted to do them special for people, absolutely change through the timbers. That sycamore was, it's a lovely piece at the end, but it is a little bit tougher cutting it, going around the cut, especially through that kind of plane, cutting down through 40 mil. It is a little bit tougher, and the dust coming off is kind of a little bit thicker as well. So you can, use them on different materials. These are, this will go with all your kind of precious, if you've got glass baubles and things like that, this will go in the same box with all the fragile stuff. Okay. Question.
Yeah, Woodwork Learner wants to know, is there any difference with which side you start the cut first?
On some of them there are. I find, usually in the book they'll give you a recommendation of which side to cut first. Sometimes when you turn it over, you've got lots of like little loose bits and stuff. This one is fairly straightforward, so there's not too much of a bother. What I do tend to do is on this face, that side's fine because all the kind of the integral, you know, the grains running through and you've got all that strength in there. Once you've cut this face, there's all sorts of little voids and stuff as we go through. So I tend to cut the inside first and then cut the outside shape afterwards once I've turned it through 90 degrees. But yeah, have a look at the recommendation in the book. This one, it doesn't matter too much. Okay. It's a bit more easy to, you know, it's a lot more free cutting with this pine. But yeah, it's a fragile little thing on the inside, but I think that's part of its charm. If you want to put more tape on, you can. I find gravity does most of the work down this way. If there's lots of little bits, I would stick a bit of tape on the back because sometimes they fall down in this little extraction plate in the little holes and they act as little pins that are quite difficult to kind of maneuver the workpiece then. So if you've got lots of little bits, I would recommend putting a bit more tape, you know, as you go. But this one, they're quite big bits that we're left with. I'm not sure on camera, sometimes it can look like we're getting very close to the blade. I'm very confident with where my hands are. So we just swung out a little wide on that one. So when I come round on that outside shape, I'll replicate that so it's not to cause such a thin bit of material. Now I've got a nice point here, so I'm going to do a loop-the-loop. So coming around that cut, and then we'll get that really nice definition up on the end. And as if we were just talking about it, that little pin is just falling down. So I'm backing up, see if I can engage the teeth of the blade on that. Sometimes it will just ping it out. Sometimes it will lift it enough that we can carry on. There we go, hopefully that's gotten rid of it. Yeah, that feels good. So we can just carry on with our project. But if you get something like that, if you feel like you're coming up against a lot of resistance, don't kind of force it, adding more forwards pressure or more kind of pressure on the feed, because the likelihood is that something's just catching underneath. Again, we've got one of those little points, so we're coming around a miniature loop-the-loop. Nice and quick with a direction change on those corners there. And again, just come around there. This time I think I'm going to come straight into that cut there. And then I'm going to back along this line, so I'm reversing back up a previous cut we've made. And then I'm going to trim it that way. Good. You can see that piece come loose. I'm trying to scoop this up with all the little bits attached.
It's a scroll saw, please.
So the scroll saw, this is the AT406SS. This is Axminster trade, so it's kind of you know, top of the line really. It's a really nice saw.
Scroll saw, please.
Yeah. So the blade, that's gonna. Again, it depends what sort of timber you're using. You could probably get away with quite a few of these. I'd probably knock out about 7 or 8 of these with that blade before it starts getting dull on the pine. You know, if you've got something a little bit tougher, a little bit more abrasive, you know, you may find that it runs out quicker. You might come up against a knot or something which could quite quickly take the edge off the teeth. So it's kind of, you know, it's one of those tricky things. It's what you're using. But for this, I would expect to use that for, you know, a good hour and a half before it kind of loses its edge properly, and we start to see those burns. We start to feel like we have to push the project, you know, and kind of bully it onto the blade. This should be really nice and free cutting. And you know, quite often find the blades dull over time, and if you're constantly using them, you kind of slowly increase your pressure and things. So it seems quite normal when you put a new blade on there. You know, the really you can tell the difference.
Great YouTube name here. Fuller Blarney wants to know: could you please discuss blade tooth style and pitch?
Yeah. So this is a modified geometry, which I think is kind of, you know, it's the best of all the worlds, really. It's got gaps between the teeth. Blade selection is actually quite a big subject. There's, you know, it depends what materials you're cutting, but a general rule of thumb that, you know, the bigger gap between the teeth is for thicker materials. Where the kind of waste collects in between each tooth, in the gullet of each tooth. So less teeth for thicker material. Things like metal, you know, you want more teeth to get a better finish. These modified geometry ones have a ground tooth. They have an actual shaped tooth. So they grind the shape on it, and that allows you to turn the project around really quickly, but it hasn't got the kind of kerf on the tooth. So with blades, you'll have a right and a left set on the tooth, alternating. So when you want to turn the project, that one of those teeth is always going to do its thing and cut the next little kind of next cut. So with these modified geometry ones, because they've shaped the tooth, there's an angle on each tooth. It allows you to turn and twist the project, but without all that kind of clearance you'd need for a normal blade. There's skip tooth type blades. Again, they have the bigger, a bigger gap between each tooth, a lower TPI, if you will. There's lots of things. There's a hook tooth that allows you to cut slightly straighter lines. Yeah, there's all sorts. If you're interested in the blades, if you pop on our Axminster website, pick up any of those PEGAS blades, and drop down to the little technical section, and they've produced a really good kind of poster with, you know, every blade pretty much under the sun on there, and it's got the it's got like a chart on there which tells you what blade's good for what. And there's hundreds of them, but check them out. If you've got, what I would say is these modified geometry ones are, you know, they're really good all rounders. So I stick with them, to be honest. If you've got a special job, say you want to cut a little bit of brass plate, or you've got I don't know, like something thicker, I think that's the time you need to refer to the chart, and just make sure that you're selecting the blade that's correct for your project or material. All right, but yeah, check that out. That's on the PEGAS, our PEGAS blades on our website. There's a full rundown of every blade and what they do and all that. So check that one out. So we just need to cut this outside shape now, and I think let's do a little relief cut into here. So just picking up on that side face now. We've used all that information, so we don't need that anymore. And I just want to show you something else. Of course, we could come in here and then back out and come back in the other direction to get that really nice definition. What I like to do sometimes is just do a little tiny cut parallel to the one you've just done. And what we're creating, I'm not sure if it'll show on camera, there's a little bit of space there for me to rest the back of the blade on. And we can start our cut right from in that corner. And that just saves us a bit of time. So nice slow feed. If you're getting into scroll saws or scrolling, you'll get used to this kind of twist in the project as you're feeding it onto the cut. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do a little kind of bit of clearance. So I'm resting on the side of the blade and just doing a couple of little cuts, which then allows me space to reverse up into that V, and then we can take our cut from there. So remember, we drifted off on this side, so I'm just going to do the same kind of repeat, just cut outside that line and bring it back in. Try and keep it kind of flow, a natural curve. I just doubled up on my tape there, so I was just smoothing that down to make sure I can see where I need to cut up to. Just went a little bit deeper there. Let's bring it onto that line on the side. And we can keep coming down. Again, I wouldn't pop out there. Just keep this cut flowing. This time I'm just going to whip round this section. So a quick change in direction. Getting us up onto this round of the head. This one's a little bit too tight for a whip round, so I'm going to do the old cut myself some space, just a little bit. Rest on the back of the blade there. And then we're coming around that little eyelet that sits on top. For you to thread the ribbon through. Just backtracking a little bit where I wandered off a bit. And if you're doing this kind of clearance thing, I would cut not right up to the line, but just before it, and that gives us a little bit of material. If we want to sand that up and make it a little bit tidier, that gives us that material there to be able to do that. So we're nearly there. And then coming around that last little bit, and again slowing down to exit that cut. I think I'm going to join that cut and then back out through there. Good. And that's our little gingerbread man all cut out. Just give it a little prod, make sure we've got all those bits. Good, and that can come across back onto our bench. And we can take this apart and see what's inside, see what we've got left. Well, actually, I've got one last little cut. Let's pop that one on. Back on with the goggles. One last little cut to come across the top there. Good. Sorry about that, folks. So we want to push this through. Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky because they almost act as little interlocking pieces. But there we come. There we go. All right. So there's our little guy. I'm going to use my little diamond file to just try and loosen some of these bits off. And really cool shapes coming out of here. Sometimes you could see, you know, where you might be able to make something else out of some of this stuff. So this compound cutting can give you some really interesting shapes, even in the kind of the waist. Don't force any of this out, just take it nice and slow and kind of wiggle it out where you can. Sometimes give it a little tap, get rid of some of that waste material, and you can see this dust. This is what builds up, and that's why we've got that gap in the tooth to allow us to for that to kind of build up in. Cool. And don't rush this bit. It's no, you know, no good taking all that time to cut it. Just to, you know, break it at the end there. And some of these bits do taper in. So again, you need to be a little bit careful how you pull them out. There he is. So that's our little gingerbread man. Can we bring him back onto the scroll saw? We've got a bit more of a close-up. So what I'm looking at now is, you know, potentially we've got a little bit here that needs to just come out, a little kind of pip. Any bits where we did that, that cuts into the corner where we may have stacked up a few cuts, they're actually pretty clean. We've done a good job on them. But a little diamond file, something like this, as long as we're careful where we hold it. Oh, there's a bit of waste still in there. Let's get rid of that. One of these little diamond files. I like these. This is the half round one. It's got a flat face and a kind of curved face. That curved face is really good around all these, you know, these little bits here. And generally, we're going to get a bit of fluff, especially off this kind of pine material. Excuse me, that we can just clean up using our little file. And actually, there's not too much to do on this one. What I would do is just run it across, you know, take those real hard edges off, and you end up with a really, really nice little project. And so there's a bit of, you know, a little bit of filing to do here and there. But that's pretty much it. You know, get yourself a bit of decorative ribbon and tie through this little eyelet at the top. And there we go. We've got a little little gingerbread man tree decoration. Really nice as gifts. And, you know, going to look great on your Christmas tree this year. Okay. So that's about it for today. Again, you may have seen some of these techniques before when we did our candle and things like that. But I just really like this shape, this gingerbread man. So I wanted to share that one with you. You know, check out the book. Again, that's the Compound Christmas Ornaments for the Scroll Saw. A lovely little book, and there's tons of shapes in there for you guys to have a go at. Thanks once again for joining us on our Woodworking Wisdom. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the like button if you've enjoyed it. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.